Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this final day of SEC Media Days from Nashville here at the Grand Hyatt downtown on Broadway. And the construction around here, incredible. There are 4 Hyatts in downtown Nashville, but we're at the Grand Hyatt. It's the headquarters for SEC Media Days. We'll be joined in just a minute by Jake Wimberly, ESPN 105.9, The Afternoon Drive down in Jackson, Mississippi. Will Gunter, ESPN 107.5, The Game in the capital city, Columbia, South Carolina. He's here at Media Days with us. And Dudley Dawson, Hogville.net, will check in the second hour. Remember, today we'll do another hour-long show. We'll be back to the 2-hour format tomorrow, Friday, July 21st, broadcasting from Media Days. And we want to thank our sponsors, man. All this is possible because of the great support we get from our sponsors and our Media Day sponsors, RumbleBoxingGym.com, 1835 Union Avenue. Love those folks. Check them out on the website. Every day of the week, you'll get the best workout. It's like swimming on land. Boxing, 45-minute sessions. They have instructors there. The classes are a lot of fun. 1835 Union in Midtown at the corner of Union and McLean. Chris Aiken, Web-Footed Kennels, had him on the show with us yesterday, talking about the great kennel up there in Jonesboro, Arkansas. They have a lot of great dogs. They do select breeding. They have puppies for sale. You can follow them on Facebook, Web-Footed Kennels. That's Web-Footed, Web with 2 B's in Jonesboro, Arkansas. We'll be talking with Chris again more and more as we go forward. A lot of hunting and fishing fans that listen to this show. I'm certainly one of them. I like to hunt and fish and anything that involves training dogs. It's all the outdoor life. That's what we're about on Sidelines. Miss Rubens Rubs, MissRubens.com, Black Magic, White Magic, Seafood Magic, Creole Magic. They're all available, and they've got the great marinades now, too. Started with a Greek family, 1935, down in Montgomery, Alabama. And they're now in about 1,000 grocery stores. If they don't have them, tell the manager they need to please stock those rubs. In the meantime, go to MissRubens.com. You can order them on Amazon and a few other selected sites. All right, so I want to say that George Gaddis, you're looking to build your man cave and getting ready for football season. GaddisHome.com, Gaddis Home Innovations. They can do anything. Make your life simple with a smartphone, security cameras, put in a home office, put in a Bloomberg, put in your computers, your TVs, security cameras, computers, anything. George will simplify it. It'll take all that complicated minutia and put it in the vernacular with relative ease. I've known him 45 years. He is the best audio-visual guy I've ever seen because, again, he makes it simple. GaddisHome.com. All these great sponsors are on our website. Web-Footed Kennel, Miss Rubens Rubs, Gaddis Home Innovation, and also say something about, again, Rumble Boxing Gym, and, of course, Hewlett & Dunn, the great folks out there, Hewlett & Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee, since 1961. They are bringing in the fall inventory now. Had the biggest order Charles ever remembers. He's got coming in for Filson. He's the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast. Devil Dog Jeans, Old South area, Stetson. They have all the great brands, over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots, and they've got great looking women's clothes. Audrey has a lot of them. She loves wearing them. That is HewlettandDunn.com. Go to the website. So, Hewlett & Dunn, Gaddis Home Innovation, Miss Rubens Rubs, Rumble Boxing Gym, Web-Footed Kennels, Red River Ford, House Industries, Gateway Tire and Service Center, all of our great sponsors. Thank you so much for getting us up here to Nashville and SEC Media Days. Jake Wimberly is driving, got the WeatherTech. We need to get them as a sponsor. WeatherTech phone cup holder as he's driving. Media Days have been a lot of fun this week. Learned a lot. Some of these, I saw Will Rogers from Mississippi State. I think he went 10 hours straight, shuffling one interview after the other, radio, TV, writers. If anything, this kid is mentally tough, the pride of Rankin, Mississippi.
No, he is, Rob, and hopefully you can hear me okay. Sorry, I'm on the road. On the road this morning. Yeah, on the road this morning, trying to make, got several things going on here, obviously. But, look, Will Rogers was, and I'm not just saying this, he was kind of made for this moment. I mean, you're talking about a kid that, I say a kid, a young man now. I can remember him when he was 11, 12 years old. His father being an offensive coordinator at the time and still is. Quarterbacks coach for Brandon High School. Gardner Minshew was the starting quarterback for Brandon High School, and Will's sitting in the press box with his dad, with a headset on. And, you go down to pregame, and he's down there throwing it around with the quarterbacks. And he's just been around this, his entire life. So, and Will is a very, thankful person. He comes from a great family. And he's the kind of guy I'm not surprised that stood around and gave interviews for, well over his time there that he should have. I think he embraces this time, and I think he knows how special this moment is for him.
Yeah, and he really impressive. And I like what Zach Arnett had to say. He talked about he really loves being at Mississippi State. And I think what people are missing about him is for 3 years being a defensive coordinator under Mike Leach in the air raid offense, that puts a lot of pressure on a defensive coordinator in terms of, those big guys can go about 40 snaps and then they've got to have a break. So he understands it. He'll make things different and probably run the ball a little bit more, but he is a guy that is very, very comfortable and confident, and he loves the Mississippi State fan base. I liked hearing that.
No, he really does. And, you got to go even back further. Will actually comes from a family that's, got ties to Ole Miss, and so it was kind of a surprise that he took a visit to Mississippi State. But to Will's credit, to Joe Moorhead's credit, Joe Moorhead came in and recruited him when he was at Mississippi State, and his father and his family really liked Joe Moorhead. And I think once, Will got on campus, it was a place that he just kind of fell in love with. So it's a natural fit, and it'll be interesting to see how this offense under Kevin Barbay, works with Will Rogers. Went back and watched some cut-ups of App State the other day, just talking with some people about what this offense may look like. And I think it's going to be a fun offense. I think it's going to be different. And, Will's bulked up a little more. I don't know that he's going to run the football a whole lot more, but, he looks like he's ready to go in what could be his final season at Starkville.
Yeah, he's certainly had a great career in terms of setting a lot of records. He's underrated as a runner. We talk so much about these dual threat quarterbacks, KJ Jefferson at Arkansas, Jaden Daniels at LSU. Last year we had Anthony Richardson, great athlete, but again, he's only got 13 starts in his career, but he was taken number 4 in the draft based on potential. Let's think about it now. Today on the list, Shane Beamer just came upstairs here at the hotel, South Carolina coach. We'll also have Lane Kiffin from Ole Miss and Josh Heupel from Tennessee. And what are you looking for? What kind of questions do you want to have asked? I'm wide open, man. I'm good for questions and all, but what are you looking to hear from each of these 3 coaches?
Well, first off, Shane Beamer, let's start there first. I love Shane Beamer's energy. I love the way that he recruits. I was not a fan of the hire when Shane Beamer went to South Carolina. Not that I have anything against Shane. I remember Shane when he was on Sylvester Croom's staff at Mississippi State years and years ago now. But he's a football guy, and look, he's a high energy guy, and he's done a really good job. And I don't know that South Carolina can finish second in the SEC West, SEC East. I have them actually finishing 3rd, but I like this team. I'm interested to hear about Spencer Rattler, and of course he'll be there. He's there as well. And kind of, can Spencer Rattler get back to what he was at Oklahoma when he was? And we all forget this a lot of times. He was 2 years ago. He was projected as the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. So, can he get back to that mold of and I think we kind of saw that at the end of last year. When you're looking at Lane Kiffin, more so, he's going to get asked questions about the quarterback race. He's not going to give a whole lot about the quarterback race. And then, for Tennessee, Joe Milton, and I've taken a lot of flack on my social channels this week about it. I've got Joe Milton into my quarterback rankings, middle of the pack, around 6th or 7th, only because the way I do quarterback rankings is on actual data that you can derive, I don't go off quarterback, recruiting rankings or anything like that. Tennessee fans not happy with that. But look, Joe Milton's got to show us this year, right?
Yeah.
I think he has all the tools, but he didn't get it done at Michigan. He couldn't beat out Hendon Hooker. And this is his time. This is his time to show. So it ought to be an interesting day.
Yeah. I think, he started those first 7 games at Michigan, lost the job, came to Tennessee, got hurt, but he never got it back from Hendon Hooker. Everybody talks about his strong arm. He's out of the muck, Pahokee, Florida, Lake Okeechobee. I think his junior and senior year, Franz Beard told us on Gatorbait Media that he went to school in Orlando. He's now known for throwing like an 80-yard pass to one of Tennessee's receivers or a receiver at the Manning passing camp out at McNeese a few weeks ago. But it's the short and intermediate passes that you always have to get. That's what a lot of quarterbacks or golfers are great at, driving the ball down the fairway, but it's the putting game, and so I can see where you're coming from, but Josh Heupel as a quarterback coach, it works everywhere he's been. He had great success. He won a national championship at Oklahoma. But I can see where you can debate that. Spencer Rattler, it's interesting. I didn't like him at Oklahoma. I didn't like his body language, but that was then. Shane Beamer knows the kid. He had a relationship with him, and last year, the last 4 games, he really came to light. Question is, can he carry that over? And what is this, his 4th or 5th year in college? And if he has a big year, he's going to be a high draft pick for sure.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, you go back, and I agree with you, Rob. I mean, the body language was not there when he was at Oklahoma. I can't remember the name of the Netflix series that he was on, but it didn't show there either. Kind of a kid that, obviously a very talented kid, but kind of a, silver spoon kid as well. But, sometimes you got to hit rock bottom to come back up. And you may have that with him. And if the light is on and they've able to kind of harness that energy that he has, it could be a big year for him. And look, South Carolina could cause some problems for some people. I don't know that they can go win the East this year, but they could definitely cause some problems week in and week out for people. And look, that week 1 matchup against North Carolina is going to be one of the best matchups we're going to see in a couple of weeks when you get Drake May at North Carolina taking on Spencer Rattler in a week 1 opening game. That's going to be fun.
Yeah, it will be up in Charlotte. They the schools, I don't get it. It's very rare for schools to play a big-time non-conference opponent in a true road game. You go back to 2019, LSU's 15-0 national championship season. They won on the road in a shootout in Austin at night. That was the first ever win on the road in a true road environment in LSU history against the top 10 opponent. It's amazing to me. They want to play them in neutral sites always.
No, you're right. I mean, I remember Alabama went to Penn State several years ago. I mean, you'll get a few of those.
Yeah.
Florida's going to Utah this year. But you're right. I mean, most of the time these things are set up on neutral sites. You look this year, Florida State and LSU down, I believe in Orlando. So
yes,
typically these are, neutral site ball games. I mean, look, Texas has got an opportunity in week 2 going to Alabama, and I think they got a really good shot if Alabama doesn't get this quarterback situation right. But rarely have we seen, the out-of-conference games, big-time ball games week 1, week 2 on somebody's home field.
Yeah. Nick Saban yesterday when he was addressing the media, the press at the podium, talked about Tommy Rees, who's come down from Notre Dame to be offensive coordinator at Alabama. He's also brought in Tyler Buckner, the quarterback. There's 2 questions I'm going to ask you. One, do you think Tyler Buckner would have been able to beat out Sam Hartman, the transfer from Wake Forest? And number 2, you look at Tommy Rees. Does he have the quarterbacks that he needs in the SEC? Jalen Milroe's a great runner, great dual threat guy. We know he stepped up and Alabama got the win on the last play. They defended against A&M last year, but are you answer those 2 questions. I got another one to follow up.
Sure. First off, on the Notre Dame transfer quarterback, I don't think that he could have beat out Sam Hartman, and I think he knew it. I think that's why he left. I mean, look, Sam Hartman is one of the better quarterbacks in the country, and what he did at Wake Forest is amazing. I've actually got Notre Dame in my college football playoff this year. I think Hartman is that big of a difference maker. So no, I don't think he could have. Secondly, does he have the quarterbacks down in Alabama? We'll see. I mean, I think you're going to see talking to Drew DeArmond this week out of Huntsville, Alabama, ESPN radio down there. He said, that, look, they're gonna run the football more. They're going to lean more on this run game. But somebody's got to make plays, and a lot of people feel like it could be Milroe. I mean, you talk to 10 different people, and they're going to give you 10 different answers. So. Alabama, though, has to get this thing fixed quickly. Again, Texas is going to be in town week 2.
Yeah, and if you have 3 quarterbacks, you don't have a quarterback. And I think about now, Gary Harris over at Tide 100.9 in Tuscaloosa is on with us every week, and he talked to people out in San Diego about Buckner. That's where he's from, and they're really high on this guy. But again, it's a new world for him. It's not much different than Auburn's transfer quarterback coming in from Michigan State, and it's a different world down here because of the speed of the defenses and that. But again, they figure it out every year at Alabama. You go back to 2014, Lane Kiffin saved the day. Sims had been a quarterback, he'd been a running back. I think he'd even been a wide receiver. And he takes them to the playoffs. They win the SEC. Jacob Coker comes in 2015, and bam! Look at him. He's leads them to a national championship. And so the next year, 2016, Jalen Hurts gets them to the national championship. They lose on the last play of the game. So it can happen. Will Gunter's on here with us right now. ESPN 107.5 The Game. This is Jake Wimberly down in Jackson, Mississippi. Will, we've been talking about the Alabama quarterback situation, and what Saban said about Tommy Rees yesterday. He really likes him as an offensive coordinator. What are you, if you're an Alabama fan and you're looking at him, are you worried? Or are you just going to say, like I mentioned, in Saban we trust, he'll figure it out?
Well, let's start with the fact that if you have good football players, it makes offensive coordinators look a lot better, right? It helps when you have elite players across the board. They tend to make play calling a little bit easier. From my perspective, it's been interesting because at South Carolina, having watched Steve Spurrier, who I think was the best to ever do it, and then watch Kirk Roper and followed by Brian McClendon and then Marcus Satterfield, so forth and so on, you can see the differences in how you set up plays. And that's going to be the thing when you have that kind of talent. Do they go back to that smash mouth, run first, pass second type of offense? Now, I will say, Tommy Rees is only going to be as good as his quarterback, right? Like Steve Spurrier, there's a lot of people when Steve Spurrier started at South Carolina, he didn't have the quarterback he wanted. And there was a lot of people saying, oh, his offense has passed him by. Steve Spurrier can't run his offense anymore. And then he got Steven Garcia in and Dylan Thompson and Connor Shaw and so forth and so on. And all of a sudden people went, oh, yeah, there's the evil genius. So, number one for Alabama fans, for Alabama, is figuring out this quarterback situation, whether it's Ty Simpson, whether it's Jalen Milroe, or whether it's Tyler Buckner. They clearly brought Tyler Buckner's not going there to sit the bench as a transfer, and they brought him in for a reason. So does he have the upper hand? I think I saw somewhere yesterday, one of the Alabama beat writers thought it might be Ty Simpson. So who do you go with in this situation to run the offense that you want to run?
Yeah. Jake, a couple of more minutes. I know you're driving, and we'll let you go. But outside of that with Alabama, you got to go over to Georgia. They got to replace Stetson Bennett, the 4th, 5th, and 6th. Back-to-back national champions. He was there for 6 years. And he left. He came back. He was told no. He treated the word impossible as motivation. Now you got to replace him. It wasn't just his stats, which were not otherworldly like some quarterbacks. It was his intangibles, leadership, and knowing what to do and when to do it. Kind of a coach on the field. Talk about Brock Vandagriff, Carson Beck, and that Georgia quarterback room. Jake, you there?
Sorry, lost you there for a minute, Rob. Could you repeat that?
Yeah, I'm just talking about, replacing Stetson Bennett the 4th in the Georgia quarterback room with Brock Vandagriff and Carson Beck. And, they've got 3 guys in there, but Carson Beck looks to be the guy. But Kirby Smart hadn't said that yet.
No, he hadn't said it yet. He's probably going to be the guy. But the question is, like you said, I mean, does he make the plays that Stetson Bennett made when they need to be made? How is his leadership skills? What kind of a leader is he in the locker room? I mean, we'll see that. The benefit for Georgia, and I know Kirby Smart kind of took offense to it. He said, hey, look, y'all keep talking about my schedule. Well, if you don't like my schedule, come play it. We can't come play it. But, I mean, I get what he's saying. So, is there some landmines in that schedule, or can, Georgia find, some rhythm early through some of these ball games? Obviously they've got games against South Carolina and Tennessee, and some others. So we'll see. I mean, I think Georgia, I've got them in the college football playoff. I don't think that they're going to win it again. I think there's some better teams, oddly, on the market out there. I like Michigan. I like Ohio State. I like, Alabama has a chance. So I don't know that this is clear cut for Georgia, but I mean, I think their schedule is going to lend itself for them to get back into the college football playoff, regardless of who's playing quarterback.
Yeah. And along the lines of what Jake is saying, you're picking your 4 teams in the playoffs right now. You probably got more than that, but who are your top 4 or 5 or 6?
I hadn't been asked this question. I've been trying to dodge this question.
That's why we asked it.
Here's the, and I like the Michigan pick. I like Michigan. I like Georgia. Here's where I'm getting called up. And maybe they're going to be number 4, because we always get that random 4th team. This year was TCU. It's been Michigan State. It's been Washington. It's been Cincinnati. There's going to be the 4th team is going to be a random team. And I don't know who it's going to be. Here's the team. And this might be the random team, because I kind of like Southern Cal too with Caleb Williams. Maybe they're 3. Here's the team that I'm trying to decide if they get in. And it's not Alabama. It's LSU. I turned in my ballot late last night on for the SEC. I went with the guy who's got the quarterback. I went with Jaden Daniels and LSU to win the West again, and for us to get a rematch in Atlanta between LSU and Georgia. And it's strictly quarterback related. That's why I actually have South Carolina 3rd. I think I said this on your program yesterday. That's why I have South Carolina 3rd in the East is because Spencer Rattler's more proven than Graham Mertz or Devin Leary at Kentucky and Florida. So with all that being said, I like LSU to be the 3rd team in there. And then we look for that random 4th. Is it Southern Cal? Does Southern Cal sneak in? Do you get – I can't pick Brent Venables in Oklahoma after a 6-6. Is Steve Sarkisian in Texas? Is this the year with Quinn Ewers? Do they make their run? Or do we get again a TCU, a random team out of nowhere?
Yeah.
Is Florida State? I mean, that would be a random team to me still. But so I've avoided that question, and you see how I just filibustered for a few minutes to not give you an answer. It was very smooth on my part, I thought.
Yeah, well, that was good, but you threw some out there, the Southern Cal pick. And Jake, one more, and then I'll let people know how they can follow you. But if you look in the SEC this year, who is your choice as best quarterback? Because there's several. There's some that were there, and then they kind of fell back, and this is their last chance. I'm talking about guys like Spencer Rattler and Joe Milton III.
Yeah, if as far as quarterback play in the SEC, I'm with Will. I like what Jaden Daniels has done. I've got him as my number 1 quarterback in the SEC. I think he's the total package. I could see KJ Jefferson, if he stays healthy, grabbing that first team SEC honors at the end of the season. And to Will's point too, he's talking about quarterbacks to the college football playoff. I mean, for me, it is all about quarterbacks. I mean, I think Georgia's good enough to get there based on the talent that they have in their schedule. As far as me, I do love Notre Dame to get to the playoff this year due to Hartman over there from Wake Forest. He's a stud. I like Michigan and what they have. I think Michigan is built as close to Georgia as anybody in the country. J.J. McCarthy's going to have a phenomenal year. He is a heck of a leader. And then also, talking about USC, I like USC, but I'll tell you who I like out of the Pac-12 more is Washington with Michael Penix Jr. He's got 2 1,000-yard receivers coming back. He's got a running back room that's loaded. So it ought to be a fun year. I don't think you can chalk it up. It's just Georgia and a three-peat. But back to your original question, Rob, I like Jaden Daniels, number 1 in the SEC.
Yeah, and it's interesting you talked about that. We had Bill Hancock, chairman of the College Football Playoff Committee, on with us yesterday, and we see him every day, all day. He's everywhere. He is. Will, you got to say that man is everywhere. He is working. He's talking. He's doing interviews. And yesterday, Will thought we had him kind of in a got you moment when he talked about the 12-team playoff. He goes, you'll have 6 conference champions and then 6 at-larges. And Will said, are we breaking news here? He goes, no. He goes, the 6 highest-ranked conference champions. That's how he got in there and said that. But it's going to be fun. I'd love it. I think that, he talked about, and I said, the top 25 teams in November are all going to be thinking. He goes, yeah, you could have 25, 30 teams in November thinking, there's a chance we make the playoff. And that's good for maintaining interest in college football nationwide. Jake, let people know how they can follow you. Appreciate you being on here with us. The driving. I love the mobile. Safety first, as always, down there in the bold new city.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Just on Twitter at Jake Wynn. We'll be on today 3 to 6, ESPN Radio here in Jackson. You can stream it on the Zone 105, 1059.com, the Zone 1059.com, Twitter at Jake Wynn. And, we'll be chalking it up today on everything that's going on at SEC Media Days.
Well, there's a lot to talk about, a lot more to come. So anyway, we'll talk to you next week. Be careful.
All right, guys. Thanks so much.
You bet. All right, let's bring in Dudley, Dawson, Hogville.net. Over in Springdale in the northwest corner, on with Will Gunter, Dudley down in Columbia, South Carolina, ESPN 107.5. The Game. We're here in Nashville at Media Days, and both from I tell you, Media Row, it's crazy down there. And Dudley, you'd love this. A couple of days ago, we had a meltdown early in the morning. Lost all the power, the internet.
The internet went out. Power was okay, but the internet went completely down. It was a fun, good time.
I'm not sure what the engineer's name was, but I have been told by sources I cannot name that he's up for the Nobel Peace Prize for doing that. Dudley, think about it. Back in the day, and you're trying to meet a deadline up in a press box to get a story out. We all remember typewriters, and you remember the old photo things. You go in there, it was like a tube, and you'd spin around and develop your film. The great writers are still here, and there's some great questions. A lot of people here, but Dudley, you've been watching and paying attention to Media Days. What are your takeaways up to this point on as we go into day 4?
I think the conference is going to be pretty good again. I know I'm breaking a story there, but may have had a change at the top the last couple of years. I think that from 1 to 14, and I guess about to be 1 to 16 next year, it continues to get stronger. It seems each year. You've had so many guys go to the NFL from here, but all these coaches continue to recruit really well, put themselves in positions to compete every year, not only for a college football championship, but a lot of New Year's Six bowls as well.
Yeah, Dudley, yesterday, Sam Pittman was up at the podium, and he's everybody likes him because I think he's more like most fans. He's an offensive line coach, and I think he appreciates what he has. Will, you saw him up there yesterday. He's not all about, do I have to be here? He thanked, by the way, the people in the press room, and that's a new term. Buddy Martin, GatorbaitMedia.com said, I don't like this term media. We're going to call it the press roundtable, or, but it's a press box, not a media box. But he and Nick Saban both said, first, let me close. I want to thank the media and the press for being here. You do so much to generate interest in the sport that we love. What do you think that is, guys? A sign of, hey, I'm like, wow, I realize it. And I know they appreciate it, but also going with NIL and the portal, remind people it's still about the game, the relationships, and having a cold beer on Saturday to celebrate a win.
Look, I think he can go on tangents and go on rants and chastise reporters, but I don't think there's anybody that does more for the game of college, or that tries to do more for the game of college football than Nick Saban. And, how would college football be? When you talk about a topic, how would college football be without the media? They're trying to make this more of a fan event. We've talked about it, but how would this event be if you didn't have the media here, even asking some of the really dumb questions that have been asked. And I think it's sincere from Nick, but I think it's his attempt. He knows that without the media, the game it would be different. The publicity you get. I mean, it's crazy what college football is today compared to say 33 years ago in 1990, and the way that we the fan can consume it, whether it's shows like this or whether it's internet websites. Obviously, it's not just the newspaper anymore. It's not just the newspaper. You don't this hotel. You don't run down to the hotel lobby at 6 or 7 a.m. and grab the latest newspaper and read what happened yesterday. We consume it in real time, and I think Nick knows that. There is not to pat ourselves on the back. There's a level of work that's required in that, and it's not always easy. And I think that's what you get when he says that.
Yeah, and Dudley, again, you've been doing this a while. You heard what Sam Pittman said up on the podium yesterday, and he had KJ Jefferson here, Rocket Sanders here. You're around those guys a lot. The interest in the game, there are over 1,200 people here. I talked to Herb Vincent, Director of Communications at the SEC office. He said, some people say, well, I'm not coming. He goes, well, we'll miss you, but there are over 1,200 people here. You see it from where you are. You go to games and all over the place. I think the interest is getting stronger. We got a great brand, but it's getting stronger, I think, nationally.
I do like the innocent little term you gave me there. You've been around the game a long time, which is another way of saying you're going to be 60 this summer.
There's nothing wrong with that. We're both the same age.
Yeah. But here's what I would say. I think that in talking about Coach Pittman and specifically, I think that he really means it. I mean, it's a nice, public relations move to say that. We always love to hear that. And indeed, as Will said, we put in a lot of work, put in a lot of time to get what these guys say to the fans in different ways. But I also believe that in Coach Pittman's case, and like with Coach Saban, he really means that. He really appreciates that. We're one of the few programs that gets to go to practice, every day. And when we're there, he comes over and, checks on us, how we're doing, how's the family, that kind of talk and different things. And so I think that, that he does appreciate what we do. Now, there are times, as is with every coach, that he probably wishes that we'd go away, but realizes the good bad thing there that the media / press brings to the dynamic, I guess would be the right word.
Well, I like that. You get to go to practice every day at Arkansas. And he grew up in Grove, Oklahoma. And Will, you heard Coach Pittman talking yesterday. Somebody asked him about the obligatory question, OU and Texas coming into the league, but also said, you grew up in Oklahoma. What are your favorite memories of Oklahoma? And he goes back to Brian Bosworth, and he talked about the Arkansas-Oklahoma games because he grew up a Razorback. I've always heard that in Arkansas, and even though he lived in Oklahoma. But he talked about the Orange Bowl in '77. He goes, Oklahoma beats Arkansas, they're going to win the national championship. And Arkansas killed him in that game. But he's a fan, you can tell, of the game that he coaches. But I can remember getting to go to practice as a student at Auburn, going for the Auburn Plainsmen and for my Sidelines, my show back then. It was so different. And Will, I don't know if you get to go to practice much, but when the coach comes up and knows you by name and knows your kids' names, that's pretty cool. You relate to them a lot more, and the fans relate to them a lot more. If I was a head coach today, I would open up all my practices. What do you got to hide?
Well, I tell you, man, this is a great debate that we have here. That we have because Steve Spurrier was of that mindset. I think he would shut it down. I think Steve Spurrier would shut it down the final 2 weeks before basically when they started game planning for their opponent, however they wanted the game. Steve Spurrier would then go, okay, shut down. Then you go to Will Muschamp, and North Korea, I think, contacts Will Muschamp on how to hold secrets. there is nobody more secretive in college football than Will Muschamp. And so you talk about a 180. Shane will let us come observe about the first 15, 20 minutes of practice, but really all it is stretching and maybe some special teams work. There's nothing, you're not watching it. I do get it. I do understand. But at the same time, you've got NFL franchises who they have completely open practices, training camps. Now they don't open them during the week. So, be that as it is. But I'm with you. But I understand college football today is all about a level of secrecy. Shoot, Jimbo Fisher wouldn't completely admit who was calling plays for Texas A&M this week. That's how secret it is.
Yeah.
So that's the new age of college football, secrecy.
Yeah, it is. And Dudley, it creates angst among fans. But every fan base is different how they treat their coaches. Up to this point, Dudley, from all the coaches that you've heard, and we're going to get back to the coaches coming up today, what are your biggest takeaways that you've been really excited about, and maybe what you're disappointed about that you've heard from a coach about a particular team or player?
Well, this may be strange, but I think that one of the best things I've heard is Clark Lee got an extension. I mean, let's be honest, Vanderbilt has not been the program that it's wanted to be over the years. And I think they've got a good coach now. And I think that, they see a future with that. So I think that's a good deal. If one of your lower teams is it appears hit on a guy that can, revive the program, then, I think that's a good thing. As far as surprising, nothing, like we said earlier, I'm about to be 60. Nothing really surprises me anymore. I did like hearing what Greg Sankey had to say about the NIL. We've talked about this. The new NCAA president, when I've been on here before, has a lot of good ideas. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. I want to see this in action, and it's got a lot to do, I guess, with the state's legislatures and the NCAA. But I think the NIL is a major focus here. If you don't do something, then it's going to be over the table nonsense instead of under the table nonsense.
Yeah, and another takeaway yesterday, talking to Kingsley Egakwan for Florida, I asked him about NIL and guys on the team where, what does that do to team chemistry and all? And I loved his answer. He said, I've already got 1 degree from UF. And he goes, you think about it. He goes, that's a silly reason to go somewhere. He goes, I've had opportunities to leave because I followed it up. And I said, what about, you stick it out, the relationships for life? He goes, that's right. He goes, that's why you don't do it. He goes, he really couldn't understand it. Sharp kid. But I got that answer from several student athletes I talked to at different schools. And I think it's so easy to get caught up in that negative narrative that the portal and NIL are ruining college football. Well, remember, these student athletes have parents. And, my kids, Dudley's kids, your kids will. I mean, we're teaching them hard work, stick it out. I think we're not giving enough. We act like these student athletes are all bad kids, just walking around with their hands out and all. I'm talking to them. Dudley, you do. Will, you do. I've had some great conversations, which make me think that, the money and stuff, they'll go. Who doesn't want to make money? But I think they're learning that just moving from one school to the other is stupid. And I think the message is the market will correct NIL, the free market, that is.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm not, sometimes I know I have the you kids get out of my yard mentality, it seems, but I do think the NIL and the portal have both been good for the student athletes. I think some of the fans have griped a little bit at it. Some of the media has griped a little bit at it. It's our access has to go through lawyers and agents now instead of sports information directors. Yeah. But I do think that, as you said, that I think that they're trying to get a handle on it. At least they're spending a lot of oxygen talking about it.
Yeah, and I think And I think the student athletes, I think, are like, yeah, there's some people getting it or whatever, and it's not the end of the world. Will, one of the things about media days, we know next year it's going to be in Dallas, and I've been reading some commentary. You know, I was on Buddy Martin's show last night, and he thinks that the next year in Dallas will be a takeover by Texas and Oklahoma. Like, we're going back to where it was at the old Southwest Conference days with Texas and Oklahoma and the Big 8 and the Big 12. Do you see when Oklahoma and Texas come into the league, do you see that happening? I don't, but I do think we might drive to Dallas next year, like that Beverly Hillbillies episode when Uncle Jed was running for mayor of Beverly Hills and Jethro had the plane flying around with the huge banner with a picture of Jethro Bodine. And it said, Jethro Bodine says, vote for Jed Clampett. And you could barely even see Jed Clampett. Texas Longhorns welcome the SEC in small print. You think it'll get that crazy?
Next year? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Texas is going to want to make it. I mean, well, you know, Texas is going to want to make a scene. And yes, next year, yes. Now, what will happen is this is going to flip years after, because Texas is, I mean, next year they're going to go out of their way. I don't know how to describe it. In my opinion, I don't know how it's going to exactly go down, but I think Texas is going to want to one up Texas A&M. Yep. They're going to want to make their presence known in the league instantly. So yes, I think next year, Texas, not Oklahoma, Texas has a big to do. But you know, the thing that they're going to have to learn is this is for football. This is 12 months a year. This is the closest thing to NFL football. And I always give credit to the NFL because they've learned how to capture every month. You know, you've got the season, the actual, well, let's go back. You've got the preseason, which starts in August. And then you got the season running September through February. And then in March, March, you have the combine. So they're on television. You're talking about the NFL. April, you have the draft. In May, you have the schedule release, which, look, people tune in for that. June is kind of quiet, but you start some you got free agency going on. You got training camp starting. And in July, you got training camp. The NFL's figured out how to stay in the news 12 months a year, whether it's the combine, the draft, the schedule release. And the SEC is kind of similar to that, right? Like we did the big deal in Destin. You know, April, you know, March is spring practice. April is spring games. May is Destin. June is kind of quiet. Although, what did we do this month? We had a schedule release, did we not? Yes, we had. And we still have another where we had a opponent release. Now we're going to have a schedule release. So anyway, can Texas keep up with that? Because that's something that people don't understand about the SEC. I mean, the Big Ten last night, I don't know if you called this, the Big Ten Network had, I want to say it was like women's bowling. They were re-airing, you know, they re-air stuff. Like SEC's got wall-to-wall coverage. They just know how to do it. And that's hard. People don't understand, that's hard to keep up with. Yeah,
and that's a great point, Dudley, what Will is saying. And you referenced it a minute ago, the similarities, but, you know, NFL practices preseason are open. And during the regular season, maybe not, but keeping fan interest year round. Dudley, you've got a lot of experience with Texas and Texas A&M and that part of the country. And Dave Cody, my good friend, is listening right now. He was sports anchor out there for about 35 years at Channel 7 in Austin, knows that program really well. He said they will welcome Ernest T. Bass in Dallas next year. It's going to be it's going to, I've been out to Texas a lot. I absolutely love it. But Dudley, Sam Pittman said it yesterday, said, well, Arkansas fans are ecstatic about getting to play Texas every year. It's like throwing a horse carcass in a tank full of great white sharks, man. Y'all are fired up about it, aren't you?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, I do think that I think it's a brilliant move having media days there next year in Dallas. I think also the All-Star game is going to be there at the same time, or at least the first part of the week. So, you know, that might be a trip that I definitely take since I'm such a big baseball guy. Also, we have my wife has a brother down there. So, you know, I like to think of that as a free hotel room, you know. But, I do think that it's a brilliant PR move. I'm sure it'll be right after the Big 12 media days, which, will probably be interesting, but I don't think as interesting as the SEC. Texas will try it as they have done, for most things. When Arkansas has been involved, tried to run things. There's a lot of strong programs in the SEC. I welcome Oklahoma. I welcome Texas coming into the league. Look forward to covering them in these latter stages of my career. I read about them all the time, living here just right across from the Oklahoma border. And one of the things to mention about Coach Pittman, I wanted to go back and touch on. He grew up 70 miles from Fayetteville.
Yeah.
But think about that. He was far closer than people in Little Rock, far closer than people, in the Northeast corner of the state. So it makes sense that he would be a fan. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It should be a show next year. And then the 2024 schedule, which, if you're a college football fan, much less a SEC fan, you got to be excited about.
Yeah. And I was talking with one of the reporters this morning when I was downstairs working out in the fitness center, and
humble brag.
No, yeah, right. Yeah. I ran, but he's been to 3 Big Ten media days. And I said, how big is that?
Was he forced to go?
Do what?
Was he forced to go?
Yeah. No, but he went to a Big Ten school, but he's been to 3 Big Ten media days. He goes, it's just nothing like this SEC thing. And there's huge populations in those areas. And Will and Dudley, with Southern Cal and UCLA coming in to the league now, potentially 70% of America's television sets are in the geographical footprint of the Big Ten Conference. And if they bring in Washington and Oregon, it's going to be crazy. A couple of things. We're going to kind of step outside the box here. We got a few minutes left. Will, when you look at college football, and I'm going to throw it to you first and then Dudley, you look at the top 25. Do you agree with Bill Hancock that in November, when we go to a 12-team playoff, it's going to create so much interest, whereas in the past, in a 4-team playoff or the BCS, the two-team deal, by November, a lot of people have checked out except for their myopic view of the world, like in the SEC.
So I chewed on that comment actually a good bit yesterday because I thought it was very interesting, because when he said it, and hopefully I didn't make a face and he saw it, I thought
that was because the lightning bolt was coming in, Dudley. When he did say it, this huge flash of lightning. Will was
true, yeah. I didn't agree with him, and I'm not sure yet if I still don't or if I do now. And here's why: because you're right, with the 4-team playoff, we're pretty tuned in to about what do you think about? We get to November, about 8 to 9 teams. I mean, you're generally looking at 8 to 9. Now you're not looking at top 25. You're not looking at 23, 24, but we're still paying attention to games. South Carolina, Tennessee, perfect example last year. South Carolina, Clemson, South Carolina eliminating those teams. So you're still tuned in. Here's the thing that I wonder about. If we know Georgia is one of the top teams in the country and they're playing, let's just say Florida at the beginning of November, and they lose, well, we still know they're going to be in the college football playoff, right?
Yeah.
Like, now, if they lose 2 or 3, all of a sudden you go, oh, okay, now it's a little more interesting. Yeah. So maybe now what it does is it makes us pay more attention. Instead of 1 through 9, we don't care about 1 through 9, and we don't care if they win or lose because we know they're going to be in the playoff. We now care about, say, 12 through 25. Can they win and sneak in? So I don't know if it changes. What I do think it changes is it changes our view. It changes who we're looking at and paying more attention to as they try to get into those maybe 6 at-large spots, if that makes sense.
No, that's a great take on it. Dudley, your thoughts on what Will said? I love it.
Very good points. I would say that the number 2 becomes a focal point now during all this. If you had 2 losses going into November in the previous, when you just had 4 teams, you're done. or you got to have a lot of help. Now you could be a 2-loss team that had a quarterback go down early, running back, a surprise upset and all that. And now you're still going to have the opportunity. It's far from being a March Madness 64 or 68 team deal, where you have surprised somebody. But I wouldn't be, surprised at all if somebody in the 12 advanced and has great games, in the quarterfinals, semifinals, whatever. You still would think that the top teams would end up winning out, but it does give us that dynamic of a Cinderella in a 12-team national playoff.
Yeah, and the example I'm going to throw at you is Auburn. Back in 2017, they went on the road, lost to Clemson 14-6 early in the season. That had that big lead on the road in Baton Rouge and lost late 27-23 to LSU. Then November 11th at home, beat number 1 ranked Georgia 40-17. 2 weeks later, beat number 1 ranked Alabama. They go into the SEC championship in a rematch with Georgia, the number 2 team. That's all that mattered in the college football playoff rankings. They win that game. They're a 1 or a 2 seed in the college football playoff. They didn't. Kerryon Johnson, running back, not being healthy, hurt. Auburn didn't have a running game, but it's hard. Do y'all think a 9-3 SEC team, Mr. Bill Hancock yesterday emphasized strongly the importance of strength of schedule. If you got a 9-3 team that's played and lost to 3 teams in the top 7 from the SEC, do they get invited?
Well, that's why I asked Bill Hancock yesterday if he would like to see, and he tap danced around the question. But do you want to see all the conferences have a uniform conference schedule, 9 games? Because and that's why I was going with that yesterday. Because you're right. Like if you lose 3 SEC games, but you win your non-conference games, does the committee look at it and go, well, kind of what you just, well, they lost 3 SEC games? Because he mentioned strength of schedule. And we know that you got to play in the SEC. You got to play 1 more Power 5 team. So you're playing essentially right now 9 Power 5 teams. So I think that's going to be, and that's what we're going to learn, is what the committee values. Well, it's human, right? It's not computer based. It's human based. What are we doing today? What have we done all week on national television? We are baking into your brain that the SEC, it means more, that the conference is better, that attendance is higher. What was the first stat that Greg Sankey threw out on Monday about draft picks? There was more draft picks, in this league. So whether you want to believe it or not, subconsciously, we're here telling you, hey, the SEC is the best. And if you've got 3 losses and they come to 3 SEC teams, well, you know what? That's better than 2 losses to Big 12 teams, or 2 losses in the Pac-12, or however you want to, or 3 losses in the ACC. So the point being is we're baking it. I say we, like I'm a part of it, but they're baking it into your brain because we're human and we'll listen. And subconsciously, when it comes time for us to sit down and have this discussion and pick 12 teams or pick the 6 extras, all you've heard about is how tough the SEC is, how great it is, how difficult it is to survive. Oh, okay. Well, it's difficult to survive 3 SEC losses. That's nothing. They're still a great team. Put them in the playoff. And that's why I asked about that schedule yesterday, because if the SEC is only playing 8 conference games and you go 5-3 in conference, that shouldn't get you into the playoff. But we've told you how great the SEC is. Now you're going to put them in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would think, it'll probably happen. The SEC is strong. It'll probably happen. I mean, I hardly am surprised anymore. One of my daughters, Lindsay, sent me a thing the other day, and Johnny Cash using AI was singing the Barbie song, which is kind of an abomination there, but
absolutely.
Yeah. And so I'm just not surprised at anything anymore. But yeah, if you have 12 teams and one of them is named Alabama, one of them's named Georgia, and one of them's 9-3. Yeah, I'm sure they're going to find a way. Now, Arkansas is a long way from getting into that conversation, I think. But if Arkansas loses, and it's not going to happen in 2024 because they don't play Alabama and Georgia, but if they lost Alabama and Georgia in a non-conference game to Oklahoma State, then should they still be considered? I would say yes at that point, but we'll see how it translates in real time.
Yeah, and it's going to be fun. We're about out of time. I got Dudley, Dawson, Hogville.net on with us, Will Gunter, ESPN, Columbia 107.5, The Game. You're going to have a lot of pressure, we talked about it yesterday. Right now, the number 5 team, they should have been in. 12 team, the number 13 team. As Will referenced yesterday with Mr. Hancock, 100 teams, 101. But I like what Bill Hancock's answer was. He said, that means that's good. That means there's interest. And I told him, in college basketball, people say the regular season doesn't matter. Hell yeah, it does, because it determines where you get seated. Every game matters. I mean, you guys are both fans of school, and my school too. We've all been to the Final Four. Once you do that, once you go deep in that tournament, you start thinking about every game matters. And, I'm not saying they're going to move the season. Those November games, though, are kind of windshield wipers. I mean, they just get wiped out because nothing's bigger than college football, guys. Not at least not that early.
Frank Broyles once said they always remember what you did in November. And, I think that's going to be the case here. There's going to be a lot of interest, as there already has been in November football. But now the opportunity to win a national championship will be available to more than 4 teams. Whether they deserve that and whether anybody from 10 to 12 can come and win it, is a long way off. We'll see. But people try to change rules in sports all the time, baseball, all that. And I still watch, I still cover, I still am interested. So, I can't really spoil it too much for me.
Yeah. And Will, all of us, I guess today, again, Josh Heupel, Tennessee will be up on the podium, Lane Kiffin, and, it'd be interesting to hear Shane Beamer, what he has to say. Last question real quick. What do you want to hear as a South Carolina fan from Shane Beamer?
Shane is pretty accessible. And so, a lot of people have already talked. As a matter of fact, I'm getting a notification right now. He's doing his gaggle right now with the South Carolina media, kind of the off to the side stuff. And I've just got a notification that says a lot of freshmen are going to play. There's so many questions about this football team. He can't answer them today. What I love, and I told you this yesterday, what I love is they have a big game to start the season against North Carolina. You don't open with a cupcake opponent. We're going to find out right off the bat about the new offensive coordinator. We're going to find out if Spencer Rattler is still performing at a high level, or was that an anomaly over those last 3 games. I don't know what he can say today that changes anybody's opinion or thoughts from a South Carolina standpoint. Maybe he gets other media members from other markets riled up with a enthusiastic speech and talking about how great they are. Spencer Rattler is here today, by the way, and that might be more interesting to hear him talk about the new offensive coordinator and kind of what they're trying to do in the plans. But I don't know what he says today that South Carolina fans in particular get really fired up about and taking the season. Pretty fired up to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I want to say thank both of y'all. Thank you so much for being on here with us this morning. Like I said, we're going to cut it down halfway through. Dudley, let them know how they can keep up with you on Twitter. I know both of y'all are on Twitter, and this has been a lot of fun this week. Be back to the 2-hour format tomorrow, but we're about to head downstairs, get some coffee. This intermittent fasting is torture.
Dead Sports is my Twitter handle. Suddenly I'm wearing this Cardinal hat with pride, 5 wins in a row and 8 of 10.
That's right.
We'll see how the trading deadline goes. We're in the worst, or one of the 2 worst divisions in baseball. So, maybe. And then obviously Fearless Friday is our high school site. I'm pumping out those high school stories. I love that, love the high school thing. And obviously hogville.net is our website where we had tons of stories up yesterday about football, baseball, softball, and I think track. So, yes.
Hey, I love it, man. And your Twitter handle is?
Dead Sports, DED, not DEAD, not yet.
Dudley Eugene Dawson. And look, Will, I'll see you downstairs in just a minute. This Aldi's got me on this intermittent fasting. I'm telling you, man, I can't even think straight. I don't know, my 2 hours, I may start hallucinating if I had to go that long without feeding. But look, great time. Most often we see the face of Christ and the least among us. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Anybody has any doubts about it, why don't you take a trip to China and run your mouth, see how long that lasts. We have free speech in this country. Sidelines, First Amendment, that's what we're all about. We'll be back tomorrow. Thanks to all of our sponsors, to everybody listening. We are out of here.